Hey, welcome to the recap of Session 6, where we do nearly a bottle episode, which is really cool. To catch you up, we ended last session with everybody going to sleep after having talked to a raven who was going to help them find a leaky rift nearby in the forest. So this session starts off with everybody waking up, doing their regular morning routine, and Drew are coming up with the fantastic idea of calling on Violet, the Eladrin that they had met before they even found the hunting outpost. She had given them a violet that they could plant and get in contact with her, and Drugar was like, hey, what about having a guide help us in the Fae? Violet should probably know about that. So they do this, they plant the flower, it grows, and they manage to be able to speak to her through it. She agrees to meet with them. They have to spend some time waiting for her as she's still like a little further away and not in the right direction to get to the rift. During this passing time, Drugar is still brewing on the fact that he thinks Harry might be possessed by a demon. He brings this up to Latruda, and Latruda tries to put him at ease, also goes over to speak with Harry to find out what's actually going on. Harry does explain that it was a prank, but is unsure of how to make Drugar understand and believe him, being that fiends and demons are generally trickster beings. Neither of them think that Drugar is ever going to believe them. Eventually, Violet shows up. The Raven takes them on their way to this leaky rift. They pull up to a clearing, and the Raven leaves. They don't see anything in this clearing. Violet also does not see anything, so they start trying things to figure out why the Raven dropped them off here. Harry reaches out with his arcane senses, trying to figure out if he can feel any magic or difference here. Latruda starts throwing things around to see if maybe they can find the rift by something going through it. This doesn't really pan out. Then both Latruda and Drugar are kind of walking around this open space, Drugar doing more of a perimeter. They both realize that there are these markings on the trees, but Latruda also notices that there's kind of a vibration feeling coming from the middle of this clearing. The same sort of tingly feeling that Harry picks up reaching out with his arcane senses. Yet they still don't see anything. So they mention this vibration to Violet, and Violet walks over, starts walking around the middle of it, and ends up seeing that there's something there. She tells them to come over, look at this exact spot, and at this point they see this line, this crack into something else with kind of a shimmeriness around it. Harry takes a closer look at it, gets up real close and looks through, and can see that there's definitely something that is not this same forest looking through this window. And it seems familiar to him, but different. And mentions this to Violet. Violet also takes a look and has the same feeling. This looks the same, but different. And this is certainly not home for her. Harry, thinking that maybe he can get some extra information out of his patron, Leah, summons her. She isn't really able to give much extra information, more confirming what they learned from the Dreamweaver, that there are leaky rifts, and confirms that this is happening in the Fae plane that she has noticed and is trying to gain information on. She's happy to know that there are rifts elsewhere, and she also has this feeling like she has no idea where she is, so she realizes she's on a different material plane than Earth. The group, despite earlier in the session deciding that they shouldn't go through without preparation, decide that they're going to figure out how to get through this rift to explore a little bit further. So first, Drugar tries to just go through, gets burnt when he goes to touch it. And so is like, oh, this is not a door, we can only see through it. So they start messing around with it, basically. Latruda tries by placing their hand on it, casting Cure Wounds, because part of what they were sent to do is to close them up. And so I think that they probably thought that maybe it would heal the rift a little bit. So when they do this, they touch it, they push their magic into it, and the shimmeriness dissipates, and then it comes back. Nothing else really seems to have changed. But in doing this, noticing that it does do something, Harry decides that he is going to drop all of his spell slots into it. This does make a difference. So Harry stands up, pushes all of his energy into it, and with this energy, the same thing happens. That shimmeriness that's around it dissipates, and then it expands. So now there is this larger crack they can see through. They're not seeing anything different than what they had before, but the crack is bigger, the shimmeriness has expanded, as well as a ring of mushrooms seems to have sprouted up or grown further around this rift. So, Drugar tries again to go through the rift, touching it, burns him. Harry has this grand idea that maybe he should get a running start, and so he tries that, and he takes damage. He still does not make it through. The next thing he wants to try is to kind of test out the mushrooms. While he's looking and examining these mushrooms, Latruda remembers that they haven't checked out those markings that were on the trees, and so they go over to those, start looking at them. They garner that they're burn marks of some sort. They do notice that they are all at about the same height, but they also notice that the burn marks aren't quite right, so they call Harry over. Harry takes a quick peek at them, and even in his tiredness, he realizes that they look like they're magical burn marks. So with this information, Latruda thinks that they're getting onto something, but they can't quite figure it out. Drugar decides to try again to get through the rift, but thinks that maybe if he tries eating some mushrooms, maybe that will give a different result. And so he eats a mushroom, backs up, and takes another running start. Still does not get through, though with this repeated trying to get through, he has noticed that unlike the first time he touched it, there seems to be a little bit of a give. Starting to get kind of frustrated, realizing that Violet hasn't put a whole lot of effort forward to figure this out, they kind of turn to her for some extra information, and the only information she can give is that doesn't look like home. But after taking a second to think, she starts having these memories that maybe this is where she came in from the Fae, and how she got stuck here. Night falls, and so they decide that it is time to sleep. Maybe they will try again tomorrow with Harry throwing all of his energy into the rift again, because that did do something, but he's out of energy now, and so they decide to go to sleep. They do want to keep an eye on the rift, see if it grows or shrinks throughout the night, and so everyone goes to sleep but Latruda and Fox. Partway through Latruda's watch, something comes through the rift, and so they wake everybody up, and there's a combat. I'm not going to go through everything that happens during this combat, but some big hits are done on both sides. Eventually, these canine-looking creatures are defeated, and after they're defeated, Latruda and Drugar sit down to butcher them, cook up a little bit of the meat, and then go back to sleep. The rest of the night, they go through their watches, nothing else happens, and so the next day, Harry tries again, dumps all of his energy into it. The same thing happens, that shimmeriness dissipates, and then as it comes back, it tears that rift further apart. So, instead of hurting themselves again, the group decides, or rather Latruda decides, because Drugar was fully happy just trying to run through it again, Latruda decides to try tossing a rock through it. They've tried this a bunch of times, each time that the rift has gotten bigger, but this time the rock goes through and disappears. It is not in the grove anymore. And so Drugar's like, I'm going through, and starts to walk through, not telling anyone that he's going through. It's just happening. He's decided. And so Harry starts freaking out. He's worried that if they don't go through at the same time, they might not end up in the same place. And so Harry goes through nearly right after Drugar. Latruda wants to try to leave some sort of message, realizing that Violet's not going to follow them because this isn't home. They tell her to go to the hunter's outpost, let them know what happened, let them know where they went, and then they go through as well. Violet doesn't follow because that wasn't home, and the party is kind of upset about this. But if they would have stopped to chat with her, they would have understood that that's why. So that's where we end that session, with everybody going through to the other side. They have no idea what they've found over there. They will find out coming up in the next session. And so will you, or the next time you catch this recap. So I hope you enjoyed. Click all the buttons down below. Subscribe, like, comment. You know the drill. Catch you at the next one, live on Twitch at Chickadee93. Hope to see you there. If not, we'll catch you back here with the next video. Bye!